Welcome to our complete start-to-end explainer on the final days of an ancient empire. We're talking about a moment where two worlds literally collided. An imperial capital fell, and the map of the modern world was permanently redrawn. Let's travel back together to the spring of 1453. Constantinople did not fall like a city made of stone. It felt like an old world taking one last breath. Just imagine standing there, right? Beneath the heavy smoke, the deafening cannon fire shaking the ground, church bells ringing out in panic, and you're surrounded by exhausted soldiers and whispered prayers. The pale dawn is rising over walls that protected Rome's last heir for over a millennium. The atmosphere is just unbearably tense. The city isn't just taking damage, it is quite literally breathing its last breath as a Byzantine capital. Part 1. The Shadow of Rome. So back in 330 AD, Constantine the Great founded a city that guarded the ultimate meeting place of continents, where Europe and Asia look right at each other across the water. By controlling the Bosphorus Strait, it was, for all intents and purposes, the bridge between worlds. Fast forward to 1453, and the Great Siege acted as this violent hinge in history. It essentially closed one chapter and sparked two massive new ones, the Ottoman Golden Age and the European Renaissance. 1,000 years, that's how long this legendary city survived. We're talking countless disasters, devastating plagues, and invading armies. But by the time we hit 1453, it was really just an old imperial heart beating inside a rapidly shrinking body. The once massive empire had been stripped down to a tiny remnant, losing its wealth and vast territories. So you have these immense, sprawling defensive walls enclosing partly empty spaces and overgrown gardens, built for a population that was now just a fraction of what it used to be. On the eve of the siege, the imbalance was staggering. On one side, you've got Emperor Constantine XI's defenders. They're fighting with absolute desperation, very limited manpower, and the heavy, heavy weight of ancient memory. On the flip side, the attackers, led by the young, absolutely relentless Ottoman Sultan, Mehmet II. They brought overwhelming resources, revolutionary new military technology, and just immense ambition. Mehmet systematically surrounded the vulnerable emperor, tightening the noose by land and sea. He knew, without a doubt, that this city was the ultimate prize to cement his legacy.
Part 2. The Thunder of New Guns.
Now, before we get into the weaponry, we really have to understand the target here. The Theodosian walls were not just your standard medieval fence. They were a vast, brilliantly layered defensive system. Outer walls, inner walls, watchtowers, and deep moats that had shielded the city for centuries. To any medieval army looking at them, they were terrifying, practically invincible. But, as we'll see, these legendary defenses were about to face a horrifying new reality that would change military history forever. The siege quickly devolved into this relentless, grueling daily cycle. First, Mehmet's ground-shaking cannons fired colossal stone balls, literally shattering ancient masonry and choking the air with dust. Then, when the second night fell, the exhausted defenders would desperately scramble in the pitch black to patch the breaches using timber, earth, rubble, anything they could find. It was this harrowing, totally exhausting race between daytime artillery strikes and nighttime repairs. But Mehmed wasn't just relying on brute force. The man used sheer, audacious genius. See, to protect their harbor, the Golden Horn, the Byzantines had stretched a massive iron chain right across the water. So what did Mehmed do? It's wild. He literally had his ships dragged overland, rolled on greased logs right around the chain, and dropped straight into the protected harbor. Just imagine the absolute psychological shock of the defenders waking up to find a whole Ottoman fleet sitting inside their safe zone. Their lifelines were completely cut. Part 3. The Final Night and Dawn. By May 28th, everyone inside the city knew the final assault was coming, and something extraordinary happened. The bitter, centuries-old rivalry between Eastern Orthodox Greeks and Western Latins, it just melted away in the face of sheer extinction. They all gathered and worshipped together right under the great golden dome of the Hagia Sophia. The emotional weight of that night is just hard to fathom. Imagine trembling candlelight, voices echoing through the cavernous space, and a united, terrified people waiting in the darkness, caught somewhere between imperial pride and utter annihilation. Then, right before dawn on May 29th, the night just erupted. Waves of Ottoman troops pressed the attack in a relentless, chaotic assault. Arrows are flying everywhere, smoke is choking the air, and then a critical disaster strikes. The brilliant Genoese commander, Giustiniani, gets badly wounded and is forced to withdraw. That completely shatters the defenders' morale. the ancient walls are finally breached, and in the smoke and sheer chaos of it all, the last Roman emperor, Constantine the 11th, supposedly casts off his imperial insignia, charges directly into the fray, and vanishes into the battle, never to be seen again. 1453. The moment those walls were breached, the ancient capital violently crossed the line between a prolonged siege and a terrifying capture. Ottoman banners appeared on the towers, the enemy poured in. The city of Constantine had fallen. It was an hour of profound terror and absolute finality. The very last remnants of the Roman world had officially collapsed. Part 4. The Ottoman transformation begins. You see, the city's death as a Byzantine capital was, at the exact same moment, its birth as an Ottoman one. Mehmed, now famously known as the Conqueror, claimed the greatest monument of the conquered, the Hagia Sophia, and converted it into a mosque. He didn't destroy the city's sacred heart. Instead, he transformed its meaning, preserving its majestic presence to serve his own vast new imperial ambitions. Our source material uses this fantastic quote, "The city became a palimpsest." Now, a palimpsest is an old manuscript where the original writing has been scraped off to make room for later writing, but the old traces still show through beneath. That's exactly what happened here. History didn't just erase the past, it wrote right over it in stone and memory. The city became this heavily layered masterpiece of Roman, Greek, Christian, and Ottoman heritage. The old world didn't vanish completely, it was simply buried beneath the new one. This single dawn really represented a profound duality. On one hand, it was the definitive end of Eastern Rome, bringing a time of deep Christian grief with the death of their emperor. But simultaneously, it marked the birth of a vibrant new world capital, solidifying Sultan Mehmed's legendary status and ushering in an era of Islamic imperial glory. It was an apocalypse for one world for sure, but a glorious foundation for another. Part 5. The Legacy of 1453. The shockwaves of this event literally reshaped the globe. Fleeing Greek scholars carried precious ancient texts to Italy, which acted like throwing gasoline on the intellectual fire of the European Renaissance. Meanwhile, the thunder of Mehmed's massive cannons proved once and for all that high stone walls were completely obsolete, which forever changed European military tactics and state building. And yet, the Orthodox Church didn't die out. It survived, adapted, and managed to preserve its identity under new Ottoman rule. So while the empire itself fell, its texts, its religion, and its harsh military lessons traveled outward and fundamentally altered the world. Defeat and victory carried together like two shadows cast by the same setting sun. I just love that phrasing. The city on the Bosphorus absorbed empires, holding both deep mourning and incredible celebration in the very same streets, the very same stones, and the very same waters. Which leaves us with something pretty profound to ponder. When a city changes hands, does it actually lose its history, or does it simply gain another layer? Think about that for a second. It really puts the impermanence of empires and the incredible stubborn endurance of human memory into perspective.